Because if you take children seriously, and if you take the task of creating a world in which little human beings can turn into healthy, whole, responsible, good adults who can live full, rounded, satisfying lives that are not just good for themselves, but good for the other people around them. You know, that's, again, I have to turn to the sacred language, like this is a sacred task. And to see people so willfully tell small children lies, like that you can be either sex if you want, or that sex is a spectrum, or that we were assigned a sex at birth, or that some people are non-binary, or that if if when you're 7 you decide that you're really a boy, you'll just go on puberty blockers and take testosterone and there'll be a little operation. And I feel livid at these people, really livid.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Well, hence my banning from Twitter, let's say. And I've taken a lot of flack about that, and people tell me, well, you were so mean to Ellen Page. And I think, well, Ellen Page is a star and she advertised her transformation and made the claim that this has revolutionized her life. And then she displayed her new body in a public forum and got 1.7 million Instagram likes for it, and probably enticed, well, let's say one young girl who's confused into becoming sterile, which is one too many for me, but it could be as many as what, 100, 500, 1,000? And I have my tendency to feel a hell of a lot more sorry for a set of confused, isolated, and lonely pubescent girls who have no one to love them enough to help them appreciate who they are than I do for one overprivileged and unfortunately confused narcissistic Hollywood star.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, I don't particularly want to say anything about Ellen Page. I think you've said it enough. You've said it clearly. No, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say you've said it clearly enough. I would just depersonalize it, and I would say that it's back to the narcissism, the focus on one person at the expense of everybody else. So that's one of the things that's most remarkable about this movement is, there are many people who are suffering or underprivileged or vulnerable or indeed like really, really, really hard done by. Like a colleague of mine once said to me, why are we not talking about the Yazidis? Why are we not talking about child abuse victims? Why is the suffering trans person or the untransitioned trans child the martyr figure of all? And almost a Christ-like
well, that's what we're trying to figure out, eh? Yeah.
So, and why is it as if to sort out that child's, like the worst thing that's ever happened to anybody, to feel gender dysphoria? I think most people feel gender dysphoria in some respect. Why to sort that out will we sacrifice any number of other people?
Well, it's a form of it's a form of narcissistic self-consciousness. I mean, and everyone does feel that for sure. And I think they feel that most acutely at puberty. I mean, people are, well, we know we're mortal. We know our flaws. We know we're going to die. We know we aren't canonical examples of our sex, that we could be much better in 1,000 ways than we are. We all have to bear that burden. And so that dysphoria, that's mortality dysphoria, and it can manifest itself in all sorts of ways. And that's part and parcel of the human condition. But to entice young people into assuming that radical surgical transformation is the sure cure for that is, well, I also believe that it borders on the demonic. I compared the people who were doing transformation surgery on minors to people who sacrifice children to Moloch. And I do see it in exactly the same way. And the weird thing about having done that, this is so strange too, is that almost all the comments I got for that article from the Telegraph and also on my YouTube channel, almost all of them were supportive.
Yeah.
Way more than I thought there would be. And I thought, well, if everyone agrees that this is wrong, why the hell are we doing it?
Postmodernism is tearing our world apart. The one thing that may be able to unite us is a mass return to our Judeo-Christian roots. At the individual level, that means developing our prayer life. There's a ton of literature out there on the benefits of secular New Age mindfulness meditation, but what isn't talked about nearly enough is the power of a consistent prayer life. That's where Hallow comes into play. Hallow is the #1 Christian prayer app in the US and the #1 Catholic app in the world. Hallow features over 5,000 prayers and meditations, including daily prayers to help you build a habit of prayer and gratitude, Bible reflections with Jeff Cavins and Father Mike Schmitz to help you grow in knowledge and understanding, meditations to help you prepare for sleep and rest each day, reflections with Bishop Barron, and much more. Use Hallow as a foundational tool to grow in gratitude and character each and every day. Try it free for 3 months by going to hallow.com/Jordan. That's hallow.com/Jordan. Ground yourself in fundamental truths with Hallow today.
I mean, false consciousness. People believe that other people don't agree with them. I mean, that is one of the purpose of conversations like this, is to show people that you can actually say these things. And I mean, it hasn't been easy for either you or me, and we have had significant blowback for it.
Let's talk about that. I want to know, like, I know what happened to me. Yeah. When you wrote this book, what happened to you?
I mean, not as much as might have, because my employer isn't a coward. So It turns out that you don't need very much bravery to stand up to these people, because the viciousness gets worse if you give in any way.
Oh, yeah.
So, you've seen that. You've seen that if somebody says something and then they apologise, they just come after you with redoubled ferocity. So I don't think that the editor of The Economist agreed with me, at least at first. But she doesn't like bullies, and she does like free speech. And so the first people who tried to get me fired, she told them sharpish where to put it.
Okay, so you had employer support.
Yes, employer support is very important. I often think about what happens to people in this social media age, and in particular those of us who talk on trans issues, but also those who talk on race issues, as being the modern form of the pillory. So you're shamed. You're shamed rather than injured. You're not hanged or crucified. You're specifically shamed. That's the aim, and it's done in a way so as to maximize the fear that other people feel that they will also suffer the same fate. Because there's nothing they can do to help you if you're brought to the pillory. Like if a woman is brought to the pillory, let's just say a woman, because I'm a woman, another woman could go and stand by her to show solidarity, but it wouldn't do her any good. She too would be shamed then. It would just mean that there were two outcasts instead of one. So then you think, like, what do you do to end the pillory? It's not mass solidarity, actually. It's powerful people. If you were under the protection of somebody with social capital, you wouldn't suffer this fate. This was for the outcasts. So it's actually the job of employers and institutions to stand up here.
You mean rather than to censor, for example?
Yes, but and you don't have to say very much. Like Kathleen Stockton University did eventually say some good things about free speech, but she had been going for 3 years and they had said nothing. If the first time they attacked her, the university had said very clearly, we support free speech, we support academic freedom, we do not tolerate attacks on our staff, I guarantee you the mob would have gone elsewhere straight away. Instead, it was made clear that she was available to be brought to the pillory. So I didn't have that.
Okay, so then next question is, why do you think, what has changed that has made our institutions so utterly cowardly in the face of the narcissistic minority mob? Because something's changed. It wasn't like this 10 years ago. You could see it a bit. It certainly wasn't like this 20 years ago. So do you think is it fundamentally the power that social media has brought to the obsessively and narcissistically outraged minority? Or what do you think it is?
Yeah, so I think that plays a part. But the thing is, your employer can do the same thing about social media. They can just put out a short statement saying, we stand by Helen, Joyce, or Kathleen Stock, or whoever it is. She's an excellent journalist, or she's an excellent academic. Move on. And they move on. They really do move on. So it's the fact that institutions haven't learned to deal with social media. They think they have to engage. I don't know why they do that. It's stupid. I've seen it repeatedly.
Okay, so I have a hypothesis about that.
Okay.
You tell me what you think of this. Well, look, if you're a conservative type, you tend to be conscientious. And conscientious people tend to be guilt-prone because they want to be seen to do their duty, and they want to do their duty. And so what that means is that if you're a narcissist and a mob of 30 torch-bearing neighbors show up on your doorstep and tell you that you're shameful, you don't care because you're a narcissist. You're low in conscientiousness, you're parasitic, you're disagreeable, you could care less what other people think, and so the mob has no effect on you. But if you're conscientious and 30 people show up, then you're going to think, well, 30 people wouldn't be on my doorstep if I hadn't maybe done something wrong, and I'm not perfect, and so maybe I should scour my conscience and, repent of my sins publicly, because well, why would I presume I'm right when I know I'm imperfect? That works really well on conscientious people. And now with the social media networks, a mob from anywhere in the world can aggregate itself. And even if it's one person in a million who's annoyed at you, if 100 million people are watching, then 100 people can show up on your doorstep with torches and pitchforks. And so I think that this guilt targeting that the narcissistic psychopaths use in social media is particularly effective on decent, conservative, traditional people.
And so they need to learn that we're not in Kansas anymore. Things are not the way they were.
Yeah.
You know, if you're prepared for it, if you know it's coming. So I think The Economist, because it's very America-focused, but it's still a very British publication, I think it had a couple of years' notice that things were different. And so when these started, you know, they were prepared, because it's it's the first thing you do that's catastrophic. If you make a misstep on the very first thing, then it's very hard to regain it, because they know that you'll give way. You've proved it. So they will never leave you alone.